To serve and protect. So goes the slogan of the police. And this is what the Philippine National Police is all about. The PNP is the ultimate public servant. Its principal job is to protect the well-being of the Filipino people. Today's PNP, however, does more than just serve and protect. As an organization, the PNP has been around for more than 100 years. It is the civilian peacekeeping arm of the government, much as the armed forces of the Philippines is the military arm that keeps the peace. Today's Philippine National Police was previously the Philippine Constabulary and the Integrated National Police. Before that, the Philippine Constabulary served as the National Police Force, even as local police forces were under the control of local executives. The Philippine Constabulary was created at the end of the Philippine-American War, after the Americans captured General Emilio Aguinaldo, President of the First Philippine Republic. Restoring peace and order was the first order of the day, and the American colonizers wanted a civilian peacekeeping force. In its first few years of existence, Americans occupied the highest posts in the constabulary. They gradually gave way to Filipinos with Brigadier General Rafael Crame, appointed as the first Filipino PC chief in December 1917. For the next 2 decades, the PC was an insular police force, but was placed under the control of the newly created Philippine Army in January 1936. Manuel L. Quezon was president at that time, and the country was in transition from Commonwealth to independence. Meanwhile, the state police was created in 1936, but was abolished in 1938. President Quezon himself reactivated the PC and placed it under the Department of Interior. With World War II looming, this reconstituted and revitalized Philippine Constabulary was prepared to take part in the defense of the motherland. The Japanese, however, forced the PC into servitude, along with local and national government officials. Individually, untold numbers of the men of the PC would join the guerrilla forces that sprang up after the Japanese invaded the country. While Japanese forces were still occupying the Philippines, President Sergio Osmeña created the Military Police Command in 1944. After the war ended, the National Police Force was created, again bearing the name of the Philippine Constabulary. In the decades that followed, the police was under the control of the heads of the local government units where they were assigned. These local police forces operated separately from the PC, and some units would face greater challenges than others, especially where confronting the local communist movement was concerned. The communists had been part of the guerrilla movement during the war, but had refused to lay down their arms when peace returned. As such, they had become a problem for the government. The movement grew and came close to capturing Manila, had it not been for Defense Secretary Ramon Magsaysay, who would eventually become president. It was his tactics and strategies that broke the back of the communist rebellion of the 50s. The communist movement was revitalized in the 60s, better organized, spread throughout the countryside. Subversive activities escalated until the early 70s, when then President Ferdinand Marcos declared martial law, ostensibly to defeat the communist threat. In 1975, the integration of all police forces nationwide was implemented via presidential proclamation. Thus, the Integrated National Police was formed. The PC, however, continued to exist as a separate organization, performing both police and military duties. A new unit, the Metropolitan Command or Metrocom, was created as part of the PC. The PC Metrocom was not always the most respected organization during the martial law years. If anything, it was the most feared. Suffice it to say that the martial law regime of Ferdinand Marcos did not hesitate to misuse the country's police and armed forces to meet its ends. On the plus side, there was a strong semblance of law and order, particularly during the early years of martial rule. Like the majority of the armed forces, so too did the police step aside when the Marcos regime was booted out by the EDSA Revolution of 1986. The 1987 Constitution finally called for the creation of a singular and professional police force that was national in scope and civilian in character. The Philippine Constabulary and the Integrated National Police were fully merged into what we now know as the Philippine National Police. Today's Philippine National Police is vastly different from its predecessors. It is as modern as any of its counterparts in Asia. In its continuing effort to provide the best possible service to the community, the PNP is in the midst of its integrated transformation program. With the transformation program, yesterday's weaknesses will be tomorrow's strengths. 2 years after it was first implemented, the program is starting to bear fruit. Public satisfaction ratings have been climbing steadily. For the ordinary citizen, the ITP seeks to establish the identity of the neighborhood as the epitome of a good cop. Makadiyos, makabayan, makatao, makakalikasan. At the top of the chain is the PNP chief. The PNP has a much tougher task now than 100 years ago. The world has become a more complex place, and criminality takes many forms, from raw terrorism to cyber criminality to organized crime. The PNP has not shirked its responsibility to serve and protect. Eternal vigilance is the price we pay to keep our freedoms. The PNP is on the job 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But crime fighting is not the only job of today's PNP. Just as important is crime prevention. In this area, the PNP has been in partnership with the community. The badge worn by every policeman and policewoman must be more than a symbol of authority. It must also be a badge of honor. The overwhelming majority of the country's police force are men and women committed to keeping the peace. Scalawags are constantly being weeded out as early as possible, especially when they are found to have broken the public trust. Indeed, the PNP has evolved into a complete organization, committed to its vision of a professional, dynamic, and highly motivated Philippine National Police working in partnership with a responsive community towards the attainment of a safe place to live, invest, and do business in. Its mission is clear: to enforce the law, to prevent and control crimes, to maintain peace and order, and ensure public safety and internal security with the active support of the community. This is today's Philippine National Police, truly serving and protecting the Filipino people.